I'll share my screen.
All right, thank you.
Where are we? Hang on. There we go.
All yours, Megan.
All righty. Can you guys see this?
Yes, I can see it.
Great. So let's see here. Key points, why this is a serious problem and what we can do about it. So let me pull them up over here so I have my notes. All righty. So overharvesting has become a serious problem in recent decades due to an exponential increase in human population, better and more efficient fishing methods and technology, and of course, increased demand. We're consuming fish and other aquatic species faster than they can replenish their numbers. In 2018, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization estimated that 90% of species are fished to capacity or overfished, which, if we're not careful, will lead to the collapse of many species we humans depend on for our livelihood and basic nutrition. Subsistence farmers and their communities face particularly devastating outcomes. Golden et al. Published in Nature 2016 estimated that over 10% of the global population of humans, not of fish, will be at risk if fish stocks continue to decline. For less affluent countries, seafood is the primary animal food available. Compounding the problem is the fact that commercial fishing isn't nearly as precise as we might like. Bycatch refers to the massive amount of species fishers net by accident that they can't sell and don't want. The Monterey Bay Aquarium in California estimates that for every pound of shrimp, prawns caught, another 6 pounds of other species are discarded. Turtles, seabirds, and larger marine mammals get trapped as well. When bycatch involves take of corals, this further contributes to habitat damage. So many point to aquaculture as humanity's saving grace for fisheries, and it's true that aquaculture now provides well over 50% of the world's seafood with no signs of slowing. Unfortunately, many of the species we humans like to eat and therefore farm are predator fish who rely on forager fish. Forager fish are also the food for many species in the wild. And our solution has been to mass harvest the forager fish, yank them from the ocean, grind them up, and turn them into fish feed for the farms. So rather than cut off the ocean's trunk for our use, we're attacking the roots. And because the ocean is a shared resource, nobody owns the ocean, so nobody feels pressure to restrict their take from that shared resource pool. This is known as the tragedy of the commons, an economic pressure that results in overexploitation. You can see this in play with other resource pools depleted by mutual self-interested parties, such as deforestation and unsustainable human population growth. New England cod has collapsed. The population, which collapsed means the population is at 10% or less of its historic levels, and recovery may be impossible. Let's see here. So happily, there are things we can do, such as legislation, replace the ground up forager fish with something more sustainable, and as consumers choose sustainably fished alternatives. Let's see, case study of legislation. Salmon populations off the west coast of the US are depleted or gone thanks to human activities such as deforestation, damming, and development. However, in Alaska, fishery managers have limited fishers and boats and even closed salmon fisheries altogether until enough fish migrate upriver to spawn. The result? Southwest Alaska is home to 2 of the most prolific sockeye salmon runs in the world. Population levels are at a record high, making it one of the most lucrative salmon fisheries in Alaska. As a whole, Alaska has landed about 20 times as much salmon as California, Oregon, and Washington combined. And as for the New England cod, environmental groups sued the federal government, which set in motion sweeping new management plans intended not only to control the fishing effort, but also to rebuild ground fish stocks, such as the New England cod. Another thing we can do is to fight illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, also known as IUU, which Protected Seas helps with the marine managed areas developed by Ocean Team, is an interactive map designed for boaters on the water, where boundaries for regulated areas are often unclear. Garmin incorporates the map into their software, and it's a growing, open, global data set. I included a picture over here of what it looks like with the legend and some of the things you can select for.
Can I ask a question about this map, the legend that you
Yeah.
have? So it says level of protection, most, more, least, and no entry. Can you kind of just quickly describe what that means in general? What does
Sure.
like most mean?
So a no take is where actually Jen and Claire would probably be better for that if they don't mind. Otherwise, I could give it a go.
No problem. We have a heuristic kind of level of protection code that we set up based on marine life extraction. In short, that's fishing, but any kind of marine life generally, though we look at fishing restrictions. And it's a 1 to 5 scale. And if we code something a 5, that means it's a no-take area. Fishing is absolutely prohibited. And then we kind of go down all the way to 1 from there. And 1 means there are no specific protections in a given boundary. And so that translates to this color code where all 5s are a red, are coded red, and then the darker blue it is, the more protective it is. So let's say a 4 is like, it's mostly prohibited, but maybe some hook and line is allowed, something along those lines. Whereas a 2 is like, it only restricts 1 or 2 types of fishing, or only restricts like the worst type of fishing, bottom trawling or something like that, which is like big whoop. I mean, it's good, but it's not it could be more protective. Then no entry is also coded red on our map generally, and it kind of goes hand in hand. No entry often always means no fishing as well. And so we have codes that we insert for each and every area that we map, and that's how it translates onto this. Yeah.
Oh, fascinating. And these codes are there because the territory that it occupies are environmentally sensitive, or have they been overfished, or what are some of the reasonings?
The reason, it's really just information. And so we, the project started as a way to map all marine protected areas, pretty much just marine protected areas, but we very quickly decided to also include fishery management areas, which is why it's marine managed area, a project. But it's really just more, an informational tool, a way to bring to the public a free and accessible way to understand what protections are in place on the water. And that was the original intent too, for marine users to just be able to go to an application and say, like, well, what does that mean? If there's a marine protected area here, does that mean I can't go there, or can I not fish there? And that means something different in every state and every country. And so that's the original intent of this project, and it's kind of gone even further because of our coding and our analysis. It's proven quite useful for conservation organizations as well, for analysis and evaluation of marine protections.
Well, thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. Awesome. And lastly, Marine Monitor is another project from Protected Seas. It's a low-cost radar system used to track vessels in nearshore protected waters to combat poaching and other IUU activities. Yep. There you go. So forage fish include anchovies, herring, sardines, and mackerel. And to combat that problem, companies around the world are developing fish-free feed. For example, Future of Fish Feed is a collaborative effort between NGOs, researchers, and private partnerships to accelerate the commercialization of innovative substitute aquaculture feed ingredients to replace wild-caught fish. Reliance on wild-caught fish is unsustainable since their populations are declining. And the Feed Innovation Network supports the innovation and widespread adoption of substitute fish-free feed ingredients by providing information on experimental protocols, testing facilities, and promising new ingredients. So as a consumer, you can ask restaurants whether they serve sustainable seafood. And if you live in or are traveling through the United States, the Monterey Bay Aquarium has a seafood watch, downloadable little card that you can take and fold up along these lines and stick in your wallet, which tells you choices that are the best for voting with your dollar for sustainable fisheries, some alternatives that you can have if perhaps the best choices aren't available, and the ones that you should avoid. So in summary, ocean overharvesting is a serious problem. Collapse of fisheries devastate ecosystems and human livelihoods and coastal economies. We can push for legislation. For example, what happened in Alaska versus what's happening in the West Coast. We can also move towards fish-free feed for aquaculture species, which again, supply over 50% of human seafood intake, consumption, I mean. And we can work to combat illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing, and as consumers choose sustainable seafood. Stop share. Here we go.
Cool, thank you. What was that a picture of at the end?
Oh, it was a picture of an ocean, probably by a famous painter.
Okay. It looked like a fishery that had collapsed into the ocean. Okay, cool. That's great. I guess I'm the only one everyone else is on mute, but they're all clapping. Thank you very much, Megan. Does anybody have questions for Megan?
Is there any problems with giving livestock like pigs and I think it was, what was the other one? Goats? I can't remember. Feeding them fish products? Because I mean, that's not their natural diet. I wonder if that has some kind of problems with, I know that's just kind of an off topic, but.
You know, I don't know the answer to that. It might be interesting to look up.
Yeah.
So I know that Frank has fish feed products in his house right now.
Yes.
Do you have an answer for that, Frank, since you've personally made fish feed? Frank's probably still asleep. Sorry. it's 5 a.m.
Sorry, hold on mute.
Okay.
Yeah, do I about the fish feed?
Fish feed, yeah. Can you rephrase the question, Micah?
Yeah, I was just wondering if they're because fish is not a natural diet for pigs. I'm looking it up right now. I'm wondering because that fish feed is going into pigs that, you know, it's supposed to be nutritional for the pigs, and then we eat those pigs. I'm wondering if there's any problems with giving them a diet that's not part of their natural ecosystem. If it's damaging to, you know, us from eating those types of products also.
Oh, so the fish-free feed, I think, is designed partly as a what do you call it, alternative, right? So that they don't have to eat the tinier fishes. And the main ingredient, at least one of the ones that we're making, were contained oil from existing stock. So that it was from algae, right? So when you buy that bottle of fish oil from CVS, it's the fish the oil is actually not synthesized inside the fish. It's actually consumed and accumulated from the algae. So that was the main ingredient that we were trying to that the want to make sure the fish got that supply. So yeah, I think for like pigs, I don't know if that's compatible or not, but I know with cows they're talking about taking seaweed, which is similar to algae, because if cows eat seaweed, they can actually reduce the amount of methane that they burp out, and that methane is one of the main greenhouse gases. So it is possible. I think with the right kind of ingredient, it would work with livestock as well.
That's fascinating about the seaweed reducing methane emission.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's like, I think, a replacement for grass, because you get the fiber, you get the kind of vegetable matter, but it doesn't. When the bacteria breaks it down, it doesn't release the methane.
I do have a question on the legal challenges because this effort is such an international effort. I'm sure there are maybe pre-existing treaties that exist, or there are traditional territory where maybe a certain sovereign country says, "Hey, this is where we traditionally fish. You can't impose your rights on us here." Can you maybe name one or two of the most unexpected challenges that you have faced legally in your group that you've come across?
One of the attorneys want to take
it? Sure. Let's see. Honestly, in the research so far, that's something I'm aware of potentially being an issue. But that's kind of speaking more to enforcement, which is not something we are really able to track at this point. It'd be really cool if we could, for sure. But that's kind of like the next step, like we're really into like, hey, are the regulations there? Here they are, we've researched them. And then the next step is like, are people actually enforcing it? Are people complying? There are people trying to look into that, but it's almost the hardest part of all of this, I would say. Yeah. Certainly conflicting treaties, when it comes to MPAs or marine protection. Yeah, international law is a really confusing and vast area of law, and it's soft law. It's considered soft law, so a lot of countries don't think that they have to do anything. I mean, that's think of the whaling ships in Antarctica, where it's like, oh no, it's research. It's not. And then. Yeah, and then South China Sea is something we're about to learn a lot about, because we're going to try to, map MPAs in that area. There's just, there's a lot there, but we haven't like specifically come across anything like that yet with regard to people saying you can't, you
Gotcha.
can't limit our fishing.
Yeah, and just to add really quick, I mean, you'd be surprised with how, as Jen was saying, like our map sort of elucidates where, there's a incredible amount of designated areas, and especially as Jen said, by international treaties and agreements, especially, in areas like the Mediterranean or the Baltic, a lot of European agreements. But you'd be one of the things our map is really showing, that it's pretty striking to see how many areas are designated or basically set out by these treaties, or there's obligations for each nation to designate a certain area of their oceans. But they are completely, at this point, they're just starting to monitor, they're just starting to form management plans. They're utterly lacking in any meaningful regulation. So we're still about 2 steps back from, as Jen said, that actual enforcement phase on so many places. It's like, it'll be a treat when we get to that issue almost.
Yeah. And another, as I'm aware that this is definitely a problem in like African nations, and we haven't actually started mapping that area yet. So I imagine we'll see a lot more of that. I spoke to someone who's actually going into that exact thing about evaluating enforcement of marine laws, and he was actually in the process of traveling to Africa pretty regularly to work with enforcement agencies, because they just don't have the money. Sorry, my dog.
It's okay, no worries.
They just don't have the money and the capacity to do it, and they need help. And so it's a really interesting area. Yeah.
Yeah. One more thing. And one further example to look at in the US is in Hawaii. They have, I think, 2 at this point experimental community-based fisheries. And so those are off the coast of Molokai. There's a fishery there that they've basically done several trial runs of. Can we have a fishery that's actually just managed purely by the local community? And so looking at some of those can give you a good idea of what sort of in the US, what, you know, where we're just starting to dip our toe into what it would look like to have community enforcement.
Fascinating. So one of the last things that I worked on before I left DC, I used to work as a liaison with the State Department, and we were putting together the TPP. Now it was the Trans-Pacific Partnership Program, and so being part of a multilateral policy, it was very difficult, especially for, like, let's say countries like South Korea and Japan, for our other partners to agree on, you know, just very basic things, let alone trying to organize the entire world policy-wise on, oh, okay, cool, you designated this as a protected area. Another country goes, you can't designate our own territory. That's our territory. You can't designate that. So I've come across some of these things on an international level. When you guys kind of, you know, when you're doing, going from country to country and sort of like, you know, like, oh, okay, you know, these are the policies that lay here. Do you ever come across that, and does that ever affect your work as well? Like, just, it's like, I like to call it like international pettiness.
Yeah, I would say the South China Sea is probably the most prominent example. Yeah.
That's like the one that just comes to mind immediately. But again, we haven't mapped that area just yet. And I know that our policy, at least the last time, you know, when this was big in the news and we spoke to Barbara about it, you know, our policy is to go with what the international community recognizes. And so the international community does not recognize the South China Sea as belonging completely or 90% to China.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's likely how we'll go, but it doesn't, I don't know, you know, maybe not. It's a very confusing and complicated area of law. And so yeah, that's where we are. And on a more local basis though, that, you know, I think that happens, and we're about to find, we're about to have a bunch of people help us in kind of more remote areas of the world, who can help us figure out this fishery management on a more local scale, where stuff like that probably happens all the time.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. I like to tell people the South China Sea is the perfect analogy that describes me: half Chinese, half Filipino, 100% complicated.
That's very complicated, yeah.
It's really interesting. They keep like 4 Filipino soldiers on this abandoned U.S. ship in the middle of the South China Sea, and
Goodness, how lonely.
It's very lonely. It looks really, really lonely, and it looks actually kind of funny because when you see the ship that they're sort of on, it doesn't float. It's like in the ground, and it looks like a tetanus shot that you need like multiple tetanus shots before you ever touch that boat. And they just sort of hang out there and make fun of the Chinese Navy as the Chinese Navy is yelling at them. And so I don't know how any fishing gets done there, or you know, I know the occasional American destroyer, you drives right past through the South China Sea with Chinese boats yelling at it, but they're not going to be able to do anything at it. So
Yeah. Wow.
fun times. All right. Any other questions? This is really fascinating. Like it's actually really good to kind of have a small peek into what the oceans team works on. Like I know that you guys exist, and I'm pretty sure you knew we existed, but we just don't we just really didn't know what you guys worked on.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very curious as well in the other direction. Yeah, so, and I didn't even know that these presentations were happening, frankly.
Oh yeah, they're kind of new. I made sure to mention that Barbara and Brendan, like those, and of course Megan, but those were the people that I knew on the other side. That you guys are invited anytime for these meetings, and it would actually be really cool just to know you guys a little bit more and kind of the work that you do. And if there's any resources that we could share as well, we'd be more than happy to.
Great.
That'd be great.
Yeah, we have on our side animators, illustrators, designers, and software engineers, educators, scientists, and climate justice advocates. So, those are the sort of like very brief description of the people we have on our side. If you think any of that's useful on the ocean side, we're more than happy to collaborate and stuff.
Great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Energy team. We have the oceans people here. We have to ask them questions. Anybody have more questions?
Yeah, I've got a question. So how this goes to Megan and the others on the ocean side. How has your awareness of ocean over harvesting impacted your own purchasing and consumption behavior compared to maybe a time when you were less aware of these issues, these realities?
So I had heard of the Monterey Bay Seafood Watch little pamphlet cards back when I was a kid visiting the aquarium. And ever since then, I tried to keep one in my wallet. So if I'm at a restaurant or something like that, I can take a brief glance at it. That's, I'm afraid, the only extent that it's really affected me, apart from, trying to support more sustainable products.
So for me, I was a pescatarian when I started going to law school, but I went to law school in Vermont, so fish wasn't really on the menu a lot anyway, and that's where I became aware of the Seafood Watch when I studied ocean coastal law. My one of my professors was he was like in charge of one of the Monterey Bay aquariums kind of conservation programs. I can't remember the name of it. And so he introduced that, and so I was aware of it, of the Seafood Watch, but then I actually gave up fish as well. And so I've always kind of been, so it is definitely learning about the overfishing part pushed me towards that too. And it also just reaffirms kind of my convictions with regard to my dietary choices. Now I occasionally actually do eat fish, but I actually order through a program called Imperfect Foods, which is a startup out here in Seattle, but I think that it's probably expanded along the West Coast. It's pretty cool. And they offer undesirable cuts of fish. So I think that that's the best way for me to go about eating fish, because it's fish that was already harvested and is being sold, but it's like the ends, the things that people won't buy. And so that's the fish that I will eat.
Can you describe what do you get in a package of undesirable fish cuts? Like, is it like literally tails and heads? Or?
It's not. No, it is actually pieces of it's like fillets or good cuts, but it's just like, I guess the middle cut is like the most desirable meaty cut. And
Okay.
so this is like just like towards the end. So it's like the triangle shaped part of the fish. Like,
That's so cool.
and it's like 3 or 4 pieces like that. And it's like, this is great. Why not? Or like shrimp that don't look good because their tail is like, cut off or something like that. Like it's ridiculous. Like, but because that's the whole point behind imperfect. For foods, it actually started with produce, like, ugly produce. And it's kind of expanded beyond that to kind of sell surplus and undesirable things that people in the grocery store won't buy.
I posted the link to their website in the chat. And yeah, you should see their carrots. Their carrots are all kind of wonky looking and really weird, but they're cool looking.
That's
It's
pretty neat.
I know I went to one of your, you had like a week-long event. That was there were like groups like Red Lobster I know attended, or like the head of purchasing for Red Lobster had attended, and they were making claims that they were really changing the way they made purchases of seafood to make sure that it became a much more sustainable, that they chose sustainable sources of fishing to be part of their menu. I think this was like 2 years ago at the aquarium by the bay.
So you went to the Fish Free Fee conference?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. That has had such a huge impact, I think, in the aquaculture industry and the seafood buying industry. It's like a networking event.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of its own thing. It's not part of Protected Seas, I don't think.
Okay.
It's like the F3 project is its own thing.
Okay.
But we've all kind of been involved to some degree here and there. Some members of the ocean team are involved quite a bit, and some only when we have the conference.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the conference it's a big deal, I think.
Yeah,
a lot of people from the aquaculture industry, they come together, and then the seafood industry, they come together and they kind of learn about fish-free feed for aquaculture and just kind of sustainability, and they are able to present, and then there's innovators in the field, and they present, and they can all kind of get to know each other and make commitments or make contacts, and it's also obviously this competition of trying to come up with a formula that can like replace the forage fish component of fish feed. So yeah.
Yeah, I accidentally met one of my internet heroes at that event. For me, I'm really fascinated by robotic fish farms, the fish farms that they actually put offshore. So like they have those huge geodesic domes where they grow kampachi, I think.
Oh yeah.
Off of Mexico and now of Hawaii, I recognize one of the guys at my dinner table. I was like, wait a minute, like you're that robot fish guy. And he goes like, and then he has that Australian accent. It's like, it is him. And yeah, it's really cool the people that you guys were able to bring to that event. Are there any other because I mean Red Lobster comes to mind. Are there any other large organizations that have a really huge amount of buying power that you would recommend, that you might recommend buying our fish from, like if it's a restaurant chain?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Well, I mean, anyone you'll see who is kind of following, there's about 4 different certification programs, and looking kind of for those seals of approval. It's Megan mentioned the Monterey Bay program, but there's several others, and sort of following both and there's separate certification programs for aquaculture and then for wild caught fish. And so kind of digging into, I mean, everyone has, or not everyone, I should say, but most big companies have these standards, have commitments to both the environmental impact of the seafood and now they know the human impact as well. And so looking to see kind of who's met different certification standards, I think is one of the surest ways you can see is basically, are they actually, checking where their seafood is coming from, and does it kind of have this further stamp of approval? Super helpful.
I'm also trying to post in the chat, but I don't think I can.
Okay, let me give you a co-host. Okay.
Okay.
I'll make you guys co-hosts.
Okay, great. Let's see. Send chat to everyone. No, I can't seem to click in there. Anyway, 2xc, 2xc, all in one word, .com is a San Francisco. It was like he and is the co-founder, the other co-founder. They were contacts of Barb's early on, and I think they've been involved in this whole thing. At least they knew about the problem because they were trying to do the sustainable aquaculture like years and years ago, and then the US regulations were not keeping up with the rest of the world with regard to allowing kind of like algae oil be in fish feed instead of fish oil. I did some research on that like 4 years ago to try to figure out how we could push this through, but turns out just, you know, the federal process just will not be sped up, you know, unless there's a pandemic. But yeah, and so I know he had to move his operations, I think, like to Mexico, because he just didn't want to kind of give up on his standards. But he has a restaurant in the Bay Area called Fish. I think it's like Fish ! Or something like that.
Okay.
And every year at the conference, at the F3 conference, there's generally a dinner there. But I think he also wholesale sells sustainably aquacultured seafood. So 2xc. I can't seem to put it in the chat. Let's see. Oh, here we go. I just needed a second. Okay.
Awesome. 2xc. Cool. Thank you very much. Does anybody else have any questions for the Seas team? I'm sure I'm saying that correctly. Oh, what do you guys refer yourselves as?
The Protected Seas.
Protected Seas teams. All right. Does anybody have any questions for the Protected Seas team? Quiet crowd today. Okay. I actually have a bunch more questions, but I don't know if I don't want to keep people here for that. So if are there, you know, kind of talking about some of the projects you guys are working on, are there any sort of resources that you guys wish you had access to, or you know, things that it may not necessarily be on your strategic roadmap now, but like, you know, things that you're thinking of that in the future, just so we have an idea as well of, you know, if we can be any of help.
That's a tough one. Now I do wish Virgil was on the call too. You know, right now, go ahead.
Sorry, Jen. One thing that just comes to mind is we've been working on kind of refining, because of COVID and everything, we've really been working on kind of refining our presentations on what we do and on the map in particular to the general public. And I mean, we've given a lot of presentations to governments, to NGOs, to groups like that, but we kind of want to make it you know, more accessible to a general group, and kind of have been trying to work out ideas of better graphics and video design and things like that. And so to my mind, that's certainly an area that we would, I'm sure, love to have many of your staff's assistance on. Yeah.
Would you guys be interested in making like a series of videos or a video, so that way you can put it out there for the rest of the world to see? We can handle a lot of the graphics, animation, audio engineering, and I mean, depending on where you're located and the kind of cameras that you guys have access to, we can work with that as well. Because we have a pretty good knowledge of video production and audio production on our side.
Yeah, sorry, my connection went away, so I don't know if I caught everything. We actually do want to have something recorded. I don't know if it's going to be a series. We wanted to record a webinar that would be available online. Right now, I mean, we had a webinar a couple weeks ago, and I think maybe that's the one we have online right now, but I do think we wanted to dedicate one and have it like not be one that we did live, but one that we do specifically to be able to post online. And we kind of want to have, we're trying to figure out, at least last time, I was on maternity leave for much of the summer, so I don't know.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. But I remember we wanted to, get someone to present who was like kind of, fit kind of the bill for like being, viewed a million times.
So what we on our side, like we have a Spaceship One website that sort of incorporates all the public facing activities that we do as an energy group. But along with long form blogs, we're putting together a regular, like a mini series podcast that sort of corresponds to a set of blogs that are coming out. And we've worked on, like some video production for promotion of some of the programs that we work on, like we have another project called Where to Care. So it's a mask wearing, program where we're using actually the face mask as a canvas to show why you're wearing this, who are you caring for? And so we actually work with Stanford Medical School. We're finishing up partnerships with Swiss Re, and I think we have a couple of celebrities who are interested in the program, Janet Jackson. And so, it's very, it's very public facing, the type of things that we're trying to get better at as a group. Like this entire group is very new. It's less than I think it's only a couple months old, really. And so we're just kind of like learning each other's, what we're kind of working on, and learning how to feed into this sort of media machine that we're creating. But it sounds like you have you already have sort of the foundation of the content that you guys want to put out. If you want to, you can just kind of record it long form, and then we can edit the video itself into chapters, and then you can give us the digital artifacts that you may want to include into it. We will take that. We may take some stock images that also help liven up the presentation, so that way, maybe if you have 10 to 15 minutes of content, we'll break it down into like 3 or 4 different videos, or we can put one really condensed video of it together.
Cool.
That'd be fantastic. I mean, we had talked about, as Jen said, this summer about, kind of doing shorter presentational videos. And I mean, it's something also that, the 4 of us should discuss with Virgil as well, of kind of, because he had sort of a vision of what this would be. But I know also, having really kind of concise short videos that are very like, appealing to the eye and really highly produced is a big part of something we were trying to just have ready and on hand. So
Gotcha.
I think that would be great to discuss.
I will take one step and say highly produced, one step backward. We're not like professional producers. We are really talented people.
With an understanding,
I just thought about that. Wait a minute. We're not Hollywood. We are still Silicon Valley.
Oh, no, we're not looking about that.
Okay.
Enthusiastically produced.
There's a lot of enthusiasm there. You'll see star swipes everywhere.
This is appreciated.
No, but I do think it would be good for our teams to collaborate where we can, because I mean, if this is something that you guys have wanted to do, it's something that we can try to fit into our queue of work that we do as well. But it would be an unexpected, pleasant surprise for Barb and Carl to see that the two sides are able to collaborate on something that, oh, cool, okay, that's nice. You guys did that, very cool. Hopefully they like the end product, of course, but I mean, we have those resources on our side, and I think, especially with the work that you guys that you guys do, it's very important. If we can support it in some way, that'd be great.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Likewise, of course. I don't know if we can help with it. But...
Well, I mean,
who needs a lawyer? Yeah.
Who needs a lawyer? Exactly. I refuse to practice law anymore. After when I was done, I'm done. I was like, I can't do this again. But yeah, you guys need a personal injury attorney, we'll call up the oceans team.
Well,
Oh
no.
It's very funny. Like, yeah, my friends who don't know what kind of law I practice, they ask me like, "Can you represent me?" It's like, I don't do that kind of law. I have no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You're in the database though, so as long,
Yeah.
as long as you're a barred attorney, you're gonna get those calls. I
Yeah.
still get voicemails sometimes, like just random, like, please call me back. You know, like, oh, I've never ever represented a person ever.
Yeah.
Not.
Yeah. Same here. I've only represented the U.S. government. I don't know how to represent a person.
Yeah.
I really don't know how to even to begin that case. You know, like, what do I say in court? You know?
Yeah.
But all right, cool. Well, thank you very much for being so generous with your answers and your time. Yeah, this I don't know if you have a copy of the schedule. Do you guys have access to the Excel sheet
No.
that we have?
I can send that along.
Okay, cool. Very cool. Let's see. Next week's, you guys, of course, are not required to come to any of the meetings, but it'd be great to, you know, if you guys are interested in any of the topics, it's always great to have more people. Next week, it's software engineering. Oh, Michia. All right, you're next. So he's actually going to teach the basics of what software engineering may be. So if, in case people have no idea what does a developer do with their time, he'll go over some of the basics. Basically, the engineering team is making sure that we empathize with how much work they do.
Fantastic.
The week after that, it's going to be financial reporting, profit and P&L statements by Mike. So he's going to teach us about when a company releases their financial disclosures, what does that actually mean? What does market cap mean? You know, when a company has a stock has buy or hold, or what does that nomenclature really mean, just to help us understand how do the markets work. And then after that, that's when I do my intellectual property prosecution lecture. So
Cool. Wow.
Great.
yeah, it's really diverse. And then the week after that, actually, Micah's doing ocean acidification.
Yeah, about the effects of psychedelics in fish.
Oh god.
I just got that.
It's gonna be a trip.
Oh, actually, Micah, do you mind sharing that illustration that you drew for Carl, the ocean acidification?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, give me one moment.
We can actually ask for their help here because Carl likes to give he has a normal talk, and then part of the talk he starts talking about, do fish and plankton like living in seltzer water? I don't know, but I'm betting no. And then he talks about ocean acidification. And then we're trying to illustrate what that looks like. And so I asked Micah to see if he can draw something that
There you go.
So on the left side is a happy ocean, right?
Yep, that's a 8.1 or 2 on the pH scale, and then going over to about a 7.9 on the right side of pH level. It needs to be a little bit more sparkly on the right side. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so we'll probably put like a pH scale at the top so that shows
Yeah.
what the pH is as it goes from left to right.
I left little blank spaces for any like little text areas that we need to put in there too. So, but yeah, if you guys have any suggestions to make it better, I can also animate this and have all the little like caustic ripples move and all that kind of stuff if it needs to be animated too. So
does this mean like sea urchins love acidity? Like I see a lot of sea urchins.
No, it means that their predators have died off, and so they're starting to overpopulate. There's no control, and that's why we're getting more of jellyfish and things like that, because they won't have any. Their predators will have died off.
I know that sea otters love sea urchins, so
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
love,
there's like different species of the sea urchins, right? Because like the native ones in Santa Barbara are actually dying off because there's now the invasive ones. from climate change. So it's not really clear if having more sea urchins is necessarily better or not.
Okay. I mean, I know we're asking you to take a look at a cartoon, and can you tell us if there is a scientific if there's anything scientifically that looks really wrong?
No, I mean, I'm glad the jellies are there because they are signaled to be kind of they're the cockroaches of the sea in terms of to be the most resistant to temperature change, acidification. They can handle it all. So yeah, they're going to be the remaining. So that's good.
Here's a little animation that I did a while ago of fish. So kind of give you an idea of some of the animation stuff that I can do for this kind of thing.
So cute.
That crab's eyes are really haunting.
I like his mouth.
So anyway, it's very, very cartoony, but yeah, I was making like little sleep videos for kids. So
I like that a lot.
Thank you.
All right. Cool. The fact that the jellyfish are there is great. I know that in Japan, jellyfish have taken over part of some of the nearshore oceans, and that the fishermen had to stop fishing because they kept on catching jellyfish, and it was almost sink their boat because it's such a large catch.
Oh my goodness.
So, good job, Micah.
Thank you. I'll show you what the purple sea urchins look like. They're it's becoming a big problem. There's like a plague of them. Here's the I guess I don't have a
Los Angeles time. Oh man, the paywall.
let's see, allow ads. Let me turn off my ad blocker. There we go. Hit F5, refresh. There we go. So yeah, it's become a big big problem. They're like completely taking over. But I guess you can eat them. See if they had any more pictures, but they're becoming a delicacy. They want people to catch them and kill them now. So
good.
Yeah.
And they devour kelp, so that's that's one of our biggest carbon sinks. So yeah, if they eat all the kelp beds, that's a huge problem for climate change and ocean acidification.
Yeah,
I actually know a couple of Canadians who spend their time in Half Moon Bay, and they have their own boats, and they go out picking sea urchin, and then they sell them at the docks on Saturdays. So if anybody's in the Bay Area and on a Saturday they want to have a sea urchin party, let me know. We can go to Half Moon Bay, pick them up, and then have a picnic of sea urchin.
What do they taste like? I don't think I've ever had one.
Very, very like buttery.
Yeah, buttery,
Nice.
but a very
distinct taste.
Oh, a very distinct taste. Yeah,
distinct taste.
I tried them a couple of years ago, and I couldn't. I'm gonna need a lot of baguette for that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, after you get them, it's sort of difficult to eat if you're not like into seafood. Like if you can eat an oyster, you can eat it. I think you can eat an urchin. Raw. I mean, if you can eat a raw oyster, you know what? I actually take that back. It's tough. It's much better with soy sauce and wasabi.
It's nicer than oyster, but the flavor is much more intense.
It's really intense. Like if you like it, you really like it. Like my mother-in-law loves this stuff. So as soon as she arrives in Canada, arrives here in California, we have like a bunch of urchin ready for her. Yeah, and she's like a beast at opening them. She just scissors, takes the mouth off, and then just starts going through it. So
the texture is a little bit between oyster and say egg yolk.
Ooh,
oh wow,
good description. That's really good. I'm glad I'm recording all this.
And plus, you get a toothpick afterwards, so it works perfect.
So
first time I had the taste, I don't know if you've ever gone swimming in the ocean and you got like ocean water up your nose, and it was like, whoa, like that's honestly kind of my first impression of sea urchin. I mean, it, but it's like that's what you really taste the ocean, like.
Oh my gosh. I think we have like this huge, like we have a list of things that we're supposed to try together as a group. But since we can't really get together, we can't really try them. But I know that Megan has geoduck on the list, right?
Yes.
I
I
want
was
to
just
try
about to
that.
ask.
Yeah.
Ever since the tour in Seattle, the oysters were so delicious, and I was curious what the other one tasted like.
So
Yeah,
And
there's
I
that.
can send you guys some gooey duck. Yeah.
It's just-
Awesome.
Okay. Oh man, that would be awesome.
Yeah, actually, Claire and I both live like within half an hour of the site that we toured out here. It's a tribe, this Squamish tribe, and they're like the main supplier of gooey ducks in this area, and also they rely heavily on their exports to China because gooey ducks are big in China. They're not so big over here because they're really ugly. Americans don't like ugly food. But they're just like big meaty clams. And so oftentimes they make, fritters out of them, or clam chowder, frankly, or clam strips, like fried clam strips. You wouldn't know the difference, like honestly. And you just get a lot more. And honestly, it's a sustainable fishing practice because it's all by divers. It's like they're all harvested by divers, is my understanding anyway.
I was gonna put a video on of gooey ducks, but everyone says not safe for work.
Yeah, no, I would not.
Yeah.
Especially when it's recorded. Let's not
Yeah.
let's not have anything of the record of like a share screen and this
Yeah.
this thing just shows up. Like we can live without it. Okay.
Richard's like N99.
Yeah. My code word for the team when they've gone too far is, instead of an N95 mask, I tell them wear an N99 mask just to stop. Just stop.
Cover it all.
Cover it all. Yeah. No air, nothing comes out. But cool. All right, thank you everybody for the great conversation. We got gooey duck, and we have uni or sea urchins on the menu now. So when we can all get together, we can go to Half Moon Bay and then have a socially distanced picnic, and then like just get into all the seafood.
Sounds good.
And I'll start.
Megan, great job on your presentation.
Very good job on your presentation.
Thanks, and
thank you.
Thank you to Jen and Claire, and thank you guys for showing up and listening. And
Of course, yeah, it's always learning something new on Thursdays. So, all right, thank you, everybody.
All right, take care.
bye.
Thanks.
you.
Great